Hello there, and welcome to our latest live stream for the month of March. Coming at you guys live at the right at the end of the month. March has been a very long month, but here we are finding ourselves at the end of quarter one. I have the pleasure of Rodney Naidu, our project manager, joining me on the live stream today. Rodney, say hello to the people.
Hi guys, welcome to our live. Thanks for the introduction there, Matt. As Matt mentioned, guys, my name is Rodney Naidu, and I'm a project manager at KOURO. And today we'll be taking you through some of the ins and outs of what we do on a daily basis and the processes we follow thereof at KOURO.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for that, Rodney. I'm really excited to be looking at what the ins and outs of what we do. Obviously, we're involved in a multitude of things across the board. And at the same time, we're going to be getting a take on the legal side of things from our conveyancing attorney and legal expert, Corli Zandberg. So very excited to have her on board a little bit later during the stream. But let's maybe kick things off and delve into a little bit about what KOURO does, Rodney, and we can bring Corley into it a little bit later. Now, guys, remember that this is an interactive live stream. We will receive your questions. So if you have any questions for us or Corley during the course of today's stream, then please feel free to ask them. We will make sure that we have time for questions. If you have any comments or suggestions or anything else that you want to make during the course of the live stream, then please feel free to do so. All right, let's get straight into it, Rodney. Let's look a little bit at the ins and outs of what we do at KOURO and look at some of our day-to-day processes. Now, at the end of the day, none of what we do at KOURO happens without a property to do these things on. Am I right, Rodney?
That's 100% correct, Matt.
Excellent stuff. So that's pretty much what we do on a daily basis is we need to go out and find stock. All right. So essentially, any properties that we end up purchasing are essentially considered stock for the company. All right. So we need to go out there and make as many offers on properties as we can. We need to make sure that we provide solutions to the sellers. Now, in terms of solutions to sellers, what that means is that we first need to understand the needs of the seller. So when someone comes to us and they're perhaps in a distressed situation, or perhaps they are currently living in a distressed property, or have some sort of problem that they need to solve in terms of the property, they need to accurately convey that message to us so that we can fully understand the needs of that person. So the first and foremost, we try and understand exactly the situation that the person finds themselves in so that we can then help find a solution that works for both parties. Now, once we've had a look at the problem and we've come up with a couple of solutions, we then end up presenting a proposal to the seller for their consideration. So in other words, we'll look at different options, we'll look at things from different angles, and we'll see how can we make the seller's problem go away whilst also creating a valuable opportunity for ourselves. Now, if the seller is happy with the proposal that we've offered, then what ends up happening is we sign an agreement of sale or an offer to purchase, which is a term most of you will be familiar with. So essentially, we will agree to the terms of that agreement of sale, and then both parties will then sign on the dotted line. Now, once we've signed up the property and we're essentially committing to proceed with the transaction, we do something called a due diligence. Now, Rodney, maybe give some insight onto what a due diligence actually is.
Thanks for that, Matt. As you mentioned, once the agreement of sale is signed, we then conclude with doing a due diligence process. And you'll find that in the agreement of sale, we'll note that the sales, of course, dependent on the findings of that due diligence process. So some of the things we look out for when conducting the due diligence is we first the first thing we'll do is we'll inspect the property from internally to externally. The
Sure.
purpose of this is often to decipher what it is that needs to be done to the property. Is the works that we're going to need to do, um, perhaps is it a lot of works, or is it just minor works that needs to be done? If perhaps we have a budget of 500,000 rand and maybe the works on the property equate to 1 million rand, that sort of information can be deciphered from the due diligence process and conducting those internal and external checks as well. Then, if we do proceed with the property, with the project and the sale, we'll likely get on board an architect to draw up the new designs for the house and the layout that we want to essentially, have the place looking like, and the new things to come about from the scope of works in that project. Another important aspect in the due diligence is, of course, taking photos of the properties, because, as you know, with KOURO Property Group and KOURO Property Solutions, we engage with investors on these deals. So these photos help to show the property that we are marketing at the moment, and we're going to be doing works on. It helps to attract customers into the investment side of things. Um, yeah, then thereafter, we also engage with many real estate agents to come through to the properties and give us their opinions and give us their evaluations of the properties. What do they think the ideal works and renovations on the property should be done in order to bring it to a point that it can be sold at a certain value in the market? I think that's very important point to know to note. Yeah, so that's one of the things behind doing the due diligence process.
And when we take estate agents around to the properties, Rodney, do we just take one agent around, or do we take multiple? What is
Yeah.
the process usually?
The process usually is to take multiple. It's always best to get the opinions from different people on what they think might help us in the project. You'll find that with different estate agents, they may have different opinions and they may value the property differently. So it's always good to get a wider explanation, wider idea of how and what the market value for the property would be once the renovations are done.
I hear you, Rodney. Okay, cool. And obviously, that's our due diligence done. So now, just to bring it into retrospect for everybody, we've obviously signed up the property. We've now done a due diligence on the property. We've checked it out. We've basically assessed whether it's a good opportunity or not, and it is what we think it is.
Yeah.
But we haven't really mentioned anything regarding the building side of things, Rodney, and
Hmm.
getting contractors into quote on the works. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in terms of the contractor side of things, we have a division at KOURO Property Group called KOURO Homes, and in that division, we source contractors for the division. Oftentimes, you'll find that those contractors end up working through the various other divisions in KOURO Property Solutions and our house flips and multi-lets and so forth. So we enter into a rigorous process of recruiting and headhunting the best contractors in the industry, as you will know. Then once we've found these contractors and we've done our vetting on them, we've done our background checks on them, we have established that they have done X amount of projects to our satisfaction and the quality of those projects that they have done, we then train them on utilizing our own KOURO advanced systems and processes and the tools in which we use at KOURO Property Group. Once they have been trained on using those systems, simultaneously you'll find that we work together with them to build relationships, because having them on board as a KOURO approved contractor is it's a long-term relationship. So you'll often find they'll be working with us on multiple projects. So we want to keep those good relationships there, and we offer them the support that they need on an ongoing basis in utilizing the systems and doing the training with us and so forth. Um, yeah, and that's on the note of KOURO Homes, which these contractors often do fall under. We often use these contractors at KOURO Homes to refer out to our external clients in ensuring that they receive the best quality and offering and competitive rates from us and our approved contractors. So
Okay,
yeah, that's a bit
excellent.
of a background on the contractor recruitment, contractor selection, and how we use them both at KOURO Homes and at KOURO Property Solutions, forming KOURO Property Group, of course. Yeah, back to you, Matt.
Okay, so essentially, Rodney, the process is the same, whether it's our own project that we're doing ourselves, a house flip, for example, or if it's a project that we are doing on behalf of a customer. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that, Matt. We use the same processes, we use the same procedures, we ensure that the same quality is provided throughout.
Okay, no, excellent stuff. Now, obviously, once we've done our due diligence and we've got our contractors into quote, and essentially we have verified that we're good and ready to go with a specific project, we obviously need to make sure that we manage that project effectively. And essentially, if it's a multi-let type project where we are going to be renting the property out to tenants per se, there's obviously a lot of property management that goes on in that space. Now, I know, Rodney, you deal a lot with this in our business, and I know it's
Yeah.
not always an easy task to undertake, but I think you do it very well. But essentially, the tenants are our customers, and people in the business such as Rodney need to respond and resolve tenant queries whenever they arise, and sometimes that even happens after hours. I mean, what do you do in that situation, Rodney, where maybe someone's geyser bursts at 2 in the morning? What sort of process have we put in place within KOURO to handle a situation like that?
Yeah, so at KOURO, of course, we have our site assistants who are dedicated to working at these types of tasks and attending to these issues at all sorts of hours. So if an emergency does come about, a tenant would simply need to call into a call center, and then the call will be redirected to an on-duty site assistant to provide assistance thereof.
Okay, excellent stuff. And I mean, what sort of process do we put in place when we conduct rental viewings? Do we just send the people there to go and look at the property, or do we have someone walk around with them? Do we have other tools in place to possibly show tenants properties?
Yeah, so we have a few tools that we use, of course, the online tools of listing the property online and having the pictures and descriptions through Property 24. But in terms of the rental viewings as well, we have a dedicated site assistant that will take the potential tenant through to the property and answer any questions that they may have in person, show them around, and take them through the process of what documents they would require for submitting the application for the unit.
And what about virtual viewings? Are we doing any of those, especially in these times of technology that allows us to do different things?
Yeah, so we do have plans to implement that going forward. Yeah, that's something exciting to look forward to.
Okay, excellent stuff. Now, I think one of the most underestimated things about property, especially rental property, but probably the most critical, is to actually conduct maintenance on your unit. And I think that obviously there is, for example, if I use the example we discussed earlier about a geyser bursting, I mean that's
Yeah.
obviously unplanned maintenance that you have to attend to, and you hope that you have some sort of insurance in place to cover those costs. But sometimes there's just general wear and tear that happens on a property, and you as a landlord are therefore obliged to undertake that maintenance. Now, a lot of the time we see that landlords neglect this, and whilst you might get away with it in the first few years of owning a property, generally over time the property does start to wear, and the longer you leave maintenance, or you essentially postpone that maintenance for a later date, the more and more it's going to cost you in the long run. So what I'd always suggest to landlords is just try and attend to maintenance as and when it happens. Try and keep it small before it evolves into something massive and it becomes almost a untenable project, and you end up having a distressed property that we want to buy. So I suggest that you always try and plan for maintenance. Try and focus on big wear and tear items that generally do occur over time. And when you are installing materials to your properties, always try and install things that are hard wearing, that are going to stand the test of time. What happens when someone doesn't pay their rent, Rodney? What sort of recourse would a landlord have when
Yeah.
managing that aspect of it?
So the first course of action, of course, is to issue out a letter of demand to someone that hasn't paid their rent on time. Um, yeah, that'll be your first recourse, and anything from there off will depend on whether or not the tenant actually does come through and pay their rent, or if they don't, then you need to further on the procedures from there. And yeah, it gets a bit more complicated, of course, as you know, as time goes by. But ideally, you always want to ensure that you can come to a good solution with the tenants. Letters of demand oftentimes can just be simply overlooked by a lot of tenants. You
Yeah.
find that they'll receive a letter of demand, for example, and the letter of demand might state that they have 20 days to make payments, and you get some tenants out there who will take the full advantage of that 20 days. So sometimes it's always best to speak to the tenants as themselves and try to negotiate terms with them as well. Don't just send out a letter of demand and expect for it to be paid. Try to negotiate with them better terms. If you have a difficult tenant who maybe that in recent times they can't afford the rental and maybe they want to look for a cheaper rental elsewhere, maybe you can try to enter into negotiations to cancel their lease agreement a bit earlier than it would have been.
I hear you. I hear you. So basically, having a good relationship with your tenants, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great stuff. No, makes sense, Rodney. Thank you for that precious insight. We do really appreciate it. Now, I mean, often, I mean, if you do end up having a tenant that doesn't pay you, or a tenant that absconds in the middle of the night, or even just a tenant who comes to the end of their lease agreement and isn't going to be staying with you, you obviously need to then, remarket that rental unit as quickly as possible, because
Yes,
if you're
definitely.
sitting with a vacancy, then you are essentially losing income as a landlord, and that is essentially the blood of the property. If you don't have a tenant in, you're losing blood, and if you lose too much blood, then you can die. So you've got to make sure that you get your tenant vacated, or your unit occupied, should I say, as quickly as possible. What are some of the things we can do to market our vacant units as landlords, Rodney?
Yeah, the first thing you can do is list your property on Property 24. This can be done using the prop control tool, and yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do on that. You can, as you've mentioned, virtual viewings. You can have links there to Matterport and iSpy 360 videos, which are 3D tours, and you can take the full process online and fully immersive. So that's one of the good things about marketing your property through tools such as this. Yeah, Property 24 is one of the ones we use at KOURO as well.
Okay, so
Then, yeah,
basically taking your property and putting it out there on a major platform where as many people are going to see it as possible. Is that right?
yeah, essentially, yeah. The more reach you get, the more leads you get from that advert, the better your chances are in filling that vacancy.
Okay, all right, makes sense. And I assume that like I mentioned before, as a landlord, you want to try and stay up to date with your maintenance as much as possible. Would you advise as a project manager, Rodney, and as an expert in your field, that attending to the maintenance before you lease it out is a better idea than saying wait for the tenant to move in and they issue you with a snag list? I mean, what is the better course of action to take? Should we wait as landlords, or should we rather be proactive?
I'd say we should rather be proactive, Matt. It's always best to attend to issues, maintenance issues, before we fill that vacancy. Oftentimes, you'll find that with one tenant moving out, there's often snags and defects at the unit that may have been left from the previous tenant. So you want to attend to those things before someone new comes on board. That way, when the new tenant does move in, they're moving into a freshly new. Uh, Maintained and upkept unit.
I understand. I understand completely. No, good point, Rodney. And how important are photos when advertising the property, say on Property 24? I mean, are they that important? Should one go for more photos or less photos? Should I go for professional photos or should I just take them off of my
Yeah.
phone? I mean, what do you recommend?
I mean, for the average person out there, you can use your phone. I don't foresee why that's too much of a reason not to. I don't foresee why you shouldn't, but yeah, the photos should be of good quality. That's the main thing, although. I would strike a balance between quality and quantity. So have quality images and have a decent amount of quantity as well. Don't overcrowd it with too much, but just have key elements that do stick out. So if you have a feature wall there, for example, make that the cover photo for the listing, something that sticks out and grabs the attention of the viewers out there. That'll be the first thing that they see and the reason why they click on that advert. So yeah, just be a little creative with those images. Try to take the best shots as you can.
Okay, no, it makes sense. So basically, you want to stand out from the crowd and look as presentable as possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. And what happens when people start calling you? They start calling from the advert. They are expressing interest. What are the next sort of things that that should happen thereafter? What should you as a
Yeah.
landlord or property manager do thereafter?
So looking at it from the point of view of what we do at KOURO, as soon as a lead comes through, it's then assigned to our rental viewing assistant or site assistant, and then they need to then contact these leads and ensure that they set up an appointment with the lead to come through and have a look at the property, answer any questions that they may have. The same process can be followed for any landlord out there. As soon as you receive a lead, contact the lead and find out if they're interested in viewing. And if they are, set up an appointment.
Okay, fantastic stuff. And obviously, you've touched on showing the units to prospective tenants and encouraging them to apply for the unit and provide all of their documentation. So obviously, it's very
Yeah.
important to provide them with as much information as possible. Um, what happens when a tenant qualifies for the unit? The landlord is happy to take them on. What are some of the things that happen thereafter?
Yeah, so when a tenant qualifies for a unit, the background checks qualify, the TPN checks, credit checks check out. Thereafter, we'll offer the unit to the prospective tenant and we'll send them an invoice alongside with the lease agreement. Two important things. Once the lease agreement is signed and payment of the deposit amount and first month's rental amount is received, we then conduct a handover. Now, during the handover process, we often conduct an ingoing inspection report to note all of the things that are currently what is currently the case with the unit. So if, for example, there is a defect or whatnot, then it can be listed on that ingoing inspection report. But also if the condition of something is excellent, then that'll be noted as well. Goes both ways, actually. So it's all about noting and keeping a documented record of everything in that unit prior to the tenant coming on board. So that way, at the end of their lease, when they're leaving and there's something wrong at the unit, maybe there's a mark on the wall, you can always refer back to that ingoing inspection report to see if it was there or if it was not there prior to the tenant moving in. And if it is, then it's something, if it wasn't there before, then it's something that can be sorted out with the tenant, either through requesting that a portion of the deposit be used for fixing that wall or the damage thereof.
Okay, no, excellent. Thanks for that very detailed explanation, Rodney. I think basically just being as thorough as possible,
Yeah,
making sure that everyone understands exactly what is happening at a very moment in time in terms of what the rules and regulations are, in terms of the property, and ensuring that the property is in the state that it should be in, and making sure that that is maintained going forward for the duration of the tenant stay is very, very important. So thank you for
yeah.
that. We're now going to move on to the exciting part of our live stream. We're going to be bringing on Corli Smith, who is one of KOURO's conveyancing attorneys. She is also the owner of her own firm, and we work with her on a very regular basis. I'm not going to steal her thunder, so I'm going to let her essentially describe exactly who she is and what she's all about. Corley, welcome to our live stream today. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Corli.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for joining us today, Corley. And yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you on the stream. I know we've been trying for some time to get together and ensure that you are able to join us. So we're very, very honored and privileged to have you here. So thank you for that. Maybe just introduce yourself to our viewers and just let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So, as Matt already mentioned, I'm Corli. I'm the owner and founder of Zandberg Attorneys. So, I founded the firm in 2009, and up to date, we're still going strong. So, I'm very blessed about I am very blessed, and obviously still going on, especially during COVID and all challenging times that we've all experienced. I think it's an huge honor to still be here and do what I do.
No, definitely, definitely, Corley. And yeah, I think yeah, you've been in the property game now and the law game for more than 10 years, which yeah, obviously gives us a great idea of your experience and how you run your business. So well done on that. Obviously, you work with us on a daily basis and have to put up with all of our nonsense. So if you still feel passionate about what you do every day, dealing with us, then you must be doing something right.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, people. I've got a passion for people and for helping people, and obviously for the property industry. So that's why I went into conveyancing. I think for especially first time buyers, it can be very stressful. They don't know what to expect. They don't know how the process works.
Mm.
The costs involved. It can be very stressful and it can get very complicated in some situations. And that's where I'm there. To help and to guide them, to give advice, the sellers as well, to give them advice on the costs. And, if we have a situation, obviously I need to step in and make sure it gets resolved. I need to make sure the process runs as smooth and as quick as possible. That's on me. So, but I enjoy it. And yeah, I mean, if I can help the people or my clients, then my work is done. Then I'm
Yeah, no,
happy. Hmm.
well, I'm glad to hear that you put people first because that's what it's about at the end of the day. Property, it's about people, right? You've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
to, at the end of the day, the property is just the asset that gets exchanged, but there's a buyer on one end and there's a seller on the other and a whole bunch of other people in between. So yeah, I think you've got
yeah,
to have a lot of patience and a lot of knowledge to be able to do what you do, because like you say, it can get difficult sometimes. Certain situations arise where people may get upset, and start blaming each other, and you kind of that middleman that has to bring it all together and ensure that everything moves forward smoothly. So I definitely take my hat off to conveyancers such as yourself, Corley, for doing that, because I don't know about you, Rodney, but I wouldn't have the patience for it.
Yeah, no, I think we both need to take our hat off to Corli for that one.
Oh,
No,
thanks, guys. Look, yeah, I think it's look, like they say, moving is one of the top 5 most stressful events in a person's life. So I
yeah.
understand the emotional aspect of it. I understand, how it can be stressful for buyers and sellers.
Yeah,
it's not always an easy, straightforward transaction. And like I said, my passion is really to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people do need guidance. They need help.
Okay.
They need us to guide them to make the best decision. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's why we're here.
That's good to hear, Corli. I mean, going into my first question, I think you already answered half of it there. Noting that one of your passions is the conveyancer, is working with people. Yeah, my first question was, what's your favorite element of being a conveyancer, and one of the things that you'd love to change about the industry?
So yeah, I mean, like I said, definitely helping the people. They come first.
Yeah.
And then so that's the thing what I enjoy most, interacting with the clients, but also the process. I like the process. I like how things need to be done, and just sometimes, obviously, like I said, there can be, the transaction can become complicated, but also stepping in and being there and sorting it out, resolving it for the clients. That gives me satisfaction at the end of the day, knowing that I could help my clients where they could not help themselves. If
Okay.
there's anything I could change, I think one thing definitely for me is clients' perceptions about attorneys in general.
Mm.
Obviously, they're very wary. They phone and they double check and they make sure that you are an actual attorney before they obviously pay over money to your trust account, which I completely understand. We're not going to go into obviously that today, the reasons for that. I mean, obviously it's good for people to be wary, but I just find that it is difficult for people to actually trust us, with their funds and with everything. So there again, what comes in is obviously your people skills, and obviously trying to put the client's mind at ease, and just yeah, I think it's obviously not everyone, but there is definitely a lot
Yeah.
of people that they don't trust us at all, and it's a sad thing. I mean, if you think about the industry as well, it's
Yeah.
supposed to stand for loyalty or integrity and all of that, and yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes obviously it falls short.
So I think, in essence, what you're saying there, Corli, is that we want to give the best integrity and that we can,
Definitely.
and to our clients, to help change the industry that's has a certain reputation to it, perhaps.
Mm,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think Corley, I think maybe why people are so hesitant to pay money across to attorneys is because of some of the fraud that happened in the past, where
Yeah.
fraudsters were intercepting emails from attorneys and changing bank details, and they ended up paying monies across to the fraudsters instead of the attorneys. And I know that all of the law firms, even yourself, you've now put that disclaimer regarding banking details on all of your emails to say that you'll change your bank details. And yeah, perhaps this is like some remembrance of that are still in people's minds, that they a bit worried about actually paying monies across, because they don't know if it's actually you or an imposter.
No, sure. Definitely, Matt. Look, we're still dealing with it. It's actually it's becoming a huge issue. Where fraudsters, they intercept our emails, or they intercept the client's emails. They send us wrong banking details for payment of proceeds, or they intercept our emails to the clients. When we request payment. So it is definitely a big concern. But I think clients they must be aware. It's their prerogative. My advice would be, phone the attorney and make sure about the banking details before you pay any money over. Just
Sure.
rather phone and make sure. Yeah,
Yeah, rather be safe than sorry, hey?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Okay, let's maybe take it a step back. Obviously, that's more towards the end of the process, but maybe explain in simple terms how the process works once a buyer has had their offer accepted on the property. That agreement of sale or offer to purchase gets sent through to you as the conveyancer. Yeah, what is the process thereafter in simple terms?
Sure. So once a buyer's bond has been granted, the transferring attorneys will draft the transfer documents. We'll request guarantees from the bond attorneys. We will request then the buyer and seller to come sign at our offices. The bond attorneys will also then contact the buyers to go sign the bond documents to eventually deliver guarantees to my office for the purchase price. We also obviously request the rates, clearance figures, and levy clearance figures for the units. And once we get the guarantees, we've got the figures, we've got the levy figures. We request payment of our costs as well. And if there is transfer duty payable, we obviously then submit everything to SARS. We pay the transfer duty, and then once we have the guarantee, we've got the clearance certificates, and also the transfer duty receipt. Then we're basically ready to lodge. So it can be a very quick, easy process, but just also we need to have to take into consideration there might be 2-3 other attorneys involved as well. You get the bond cancellation attorneys, which need to cancel the existing bond. Then you get the transferring attorney, which is myself, and then the bond attorney as well. So we all need to liaise and correspond and make sure we're on the same page, and obviously make sure the process runs as quick and smooth as possible to register, obviously, as quick as possible. And then when we lodge, it's about Pretoria and Joburg Deeds Office differs from the registration timelines, but let's say about roughly 7 to 10 working days, then a matter is registered. And then after registration, the bond will pay out. And then once the funds reflect in my trust account, then we can do the reconciliation, statements of accounts, and then payments to the clients.
Okay, and that's a bit of a process, and thank you for taking us through it and understanding it a bit better there, Corli.
Sure, Rodney. Just quickly, as just something interesting, maybe for you. There's actually more than 50. Where's it now? I made a note. Sorry, hold on. In a typical registration process, there's more than 50 activities involved, and sometimes up to 12 parties before a transaction can register. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of a lot of work and hours go into it. It's not that easy and straightforward that people always think. And us as conveyancers, also just something interesting maybe, have to have knowledge of about over 390 pieces of legislation governing land registration, and then including common law, and some date back to 1938.
Wow.
So it's quite a lot. I think that's why the pass rate isn't very high, because it is really, it's a lot of work. It's so much work, it's legislation, everything that you need to bring together when it comes to the transfer process. But it's interesting. I mean, like I said, I enjoy it.
Well, you mentioned that it's quite a long procedure and quite a long process, over 50 activities you mentioned that have to take place in the process itself. So what are some of the common mistakes you'll find that buyers and sellers often make in this long process when looking to transfer a property?
So, look, for buyers and sellers, I would definitely, the first thing that for me that I can pick up is they don't take into consideration the expenses. Now, whether it's the seller or the buyer. So on the seller side, they, sometimes you get sellers that they in arrears with their levies or their rates, and then, or they maybe sell their house for less than they actually need to settle the bank for. Then at the end of the day, if they also worked through an agent and they sold for less than they bought for, and they maybe have arrears, rates and levies, at the end of the day, you end up with a shortfall, and then the transaction comes to a standstill until you can, the seller has actually money to actually pay in to make up for the shortfall. So definitely that's on the seller side. On the buyer side, a lot of buyers don't know that they actually need to pay transfer and bond costs. I get a lot of clients that they're very surprised when you give them your account, and then also they don't know about the bond costs either. So it's very interesting, and I think there's where you as also you guys, when you come in and explain to the clients, what you do, also just to make mention to the buyers, they need to budget for the transfer and bond costs,
Yeah.
because we unfortunately can't work for free. So definitely expenses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very,
That's,
very living, eh?
yeah.
I think,
Okay, so expenses definitely.
yeah.
The other thing that I think is important for buyers and sellers, the condition of the property. Now, as a buyer, you need to go do your due diligence. Make sure the condition of the property. Is it damp? Does the roof leak? How's the structure? Ask for building plans, approved building plans, because you as a buyer don't want to sit with a property you just bought, and then let's say you want to extend the property, and then you find out there's no plans, or the plans was never approved. Then you need to, it's all on you then, because you're then the registered owner. So definitely that's something that I can, if I can give the buyers advice, look at the property, do a proper inspection, know what you're buying. Because after registration, you can't then go to the attorney or the seller and say, listen, there's damp, fix it. Then it's on you, because there's a footsteps clause in the most offers. And there's also a clause, where the purchaser basically indemnifies the seller of the condition of the property, where they basically declare and agree that they've viewed the property, they're happy with the condition, and that they don't have a right of recourse against the seller. So that's something as well that I think it's very important. And then lastly, I think definitely, but I've mentioned it already, approved plans. I would definitely suggest buyers wanting to put in an offer to make sure there is plans, there is approved plans.
Sure. And I know there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years about the Splooma Act. I think it's the Splooma Act. I don't know if that's going to ever come into fruition, but I know that does require you to have building plans in place and stuff. Is there any insight that you can share on that, Corli, in terms of Splooma?
So the Splooma is not yet in Gauteng. It is in Mpumalanga. So yes, you need to have building plans and occupation certificate. You need to have a couple of things in place before council actually gives you a Splooma certificate. It's separate to a rights clearance certificate, and we needed to lodge and register in the deeds office. If we don't have it, then they reject our documents. So I think it's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work and costs for the seller, and then obviously the work for the conveyancer. But I think it's a good thing, because it protects the buyer's interests in some way.
Yeah, I suppose that's the reason why they brought it out, is to just be able to give it to the buyers and make sure that they're not left with a property that's going to cause them problems, once it's transferred. But I think you've made a very good point that you should inspect your property very thoroughly before you move ahead with the purchase of it. And if a lot of the time people don't always have the knowledge of being able to know what's wrong with a property and what isn't, and sometimes seeking the help of a professional through a external inspection or inspector, a property inspector, can also help. So if anyone needs any help with that, with any of the properties they're buying, they're more than welcome to contact us, and we'll be able to help them get someone out to come and have a look. Tell us a little bit about some of your worst experiences that you've had in your career, and what lessons did you learn from those experiences, Corli?
So there isn't one that specifically stands out. I think just the idea of getting a rejection. As a conveyancer, you don't want rejections. It's like your worst nightmare. It's just, and for me, I'm a perfectionist, so for me, it's unacceptable. It's not on. It's not supposed to happen. But unfortunately, we're all human. We do make mistakes, and it does happen. But what I've learned is that. Sorry.
No, carry on. No, carry on.
what I've learned over all the years of practicing conveyancing is you need to check your documents and then you need to double check it again before you lodge. That's what I do. I check it and I check it again and I make sure everything is fine. Because you don't want to just, hope and pray it's fine and you sign, you prep the documents, you lodge, and then, you get a rejection for something that you could have rectified before you lodged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all about, dotting your I's and crossing your T's and ensuring that you pay attention to detail in the finer things and the documents.
Definitely. I mean, just something like a ID number that's maybe wrong on one of the documents, you get rejected.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be exactly the same. There's about 4 or 5 documents that you lodge in the deeds office. So on all of it, all the information needs to be exactly the same. If there's somewhere some discrepancy, they reject you. So definitely making sure everything is correct.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a very important aspect, attention to detail, ensuring that everything is in order and in line so that come the time to lodge and everything goes through, there aren't any hiccups in the processes and any documents that come back, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of, my next question would be speaking of the future of the industry and, the term that's thrown around very often, the fourth industrial revolution, 4IR, incorporative of technology. Where do you see the industry, the conveyancing industry going, especially with technology and incorporating it going forward?
So look, we're definitely moving into a more paperless system. I think most of the major banks already have a paperless system whereby the clients sign the documents digitally, which it's much better. I mean, if you come to my office and you look at my files, it's like it's about as thick as a Bible or 2 Bibles sometimes, depending how long the transaction takes. But I mean, if you think about it, all the printing and all the cheese that we can save. So I think definitely we're moving there, we're getting there. But on the transfer of property side, the conveyancing side, we're not there yet. The act has been, let me just quickly get the act's name here. Sorry, hold on. So it's the Electronic Deeds Registration System Act. That's a big word. It has been signed into law, meaning that we are moving towards the future of paperless system. Even the registration of documents, everything will be, digitally. But there still needs to be a lot done for that to happen. And obviously there is concerns as well, with all the fraud and all of that. People signing digitally or online, so there's still a lot that needs to be done and sorted out before we can actually implement the whole paperless system. But I think we definitely getting there, moving towards it.
So a general sense of things is that we're moving to a more simplified way of doing things, paperless and easier done, easier to sign digitally, just a simplified process.
Yes.
Okay.
There is still 50 or more steps that we need to take. But yes, we're moving towards a more simplified, easier, process for the clients, I guess.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Okay, great stuff. Do you ever think it's going to be completely paperless, or do you think there'll always be 1 or 2 pieces of paper that need to be signed?
Look, for me personally, I prefer almost the hard copy, because with digital or with technology, if everything's on my laptop and I don't have a backup and my laptop goes, it bombs out, then I've lost basically all the information. So I don't know. I think for me, like I say, I prefer hard copies. But at the end of the day, you don't have, we need to archive the files and keep it for about 5 years after registration. You need space for that. You need to like get a storage container or something to go and archive all the files. So in that situation, going paperless would be better. But I think, like I said, we need to sort out everything around it, making sure that the information don't somehow get lost, you know, with
I
the
hear you.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, sure, go digital, but make sure that it's well protected and backed up, and will
Yes.
save on storage space. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of pros towards it. Definitely.
Yeah.
I see there's a question here from John. He wants to know. Do you think that the Law Society basically stating that you have to charge certain tariffs on your fees, do you feel that limits you guys in any way, or do you prefer that type of system?
Look, I think there need to be a system in place. Otherwise, anybody will charge whatever they want. So rules are there for a reason, and the systems are there for a reason, and that's why the law is there for a reason. There needs to be structure, there needs to be rules for everybody. So I think it's a good thing. Look, I think the amount of work, sometimes you do obviously more work. It takes more hours to get a matter registered. But on that side, you can't charge more. You know what I mean? You've got then a basic set of fees that you can charge, and that's it. So there's pros and cons to it, but obviously, I think it's good that there is structure and there's rules, and there's that everybody is on the same page about costs as well. Because obviously, then the public also know, because it's public information. You more or less what an attorney may charge or may not charge. So I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, no, great stuff. Thanks for that, Corli. Yeah, guys. So just a reminder, this is an interactive Q&A. So if you have any questions for Corli, then please do send them through, and we will ask them to her, and she'll try and give you the best answer possible. Intabi wants to know, do you think that the current system regarding the tariffs is unfair, considering that the amount of work you put into, say, helping to transfer a R1 million property versus, say, a R5 million property is more or less the same? Do you think that the tariff system is unfair in that regard, in the case that the R5 million transfer will incur more fees than, say, the R1 million transfer?
Look, each transaction is different, but if she more refers more to obviously the value that obviously determines the costs, we're doing the same work, whether it's a 500,000 rand house or 5 million rand house. It's the same. It's more or less the same procedure. It's the same amount of work, obviously. But yeah, I'm not really sure how they determined or came to obviously that schedule. The Law Society, which is now the Legal Practice Council, with regards to determining the costs and all of that. But look, there is more value. Yeah, there's more value in that property. So obviously they determine it based on that. But the whole reason behind it, I couldn't say why.
I hear you. Do you, I mean, what would you say? I mean, do you mostly deal with properties that are on the higher end, say 3 million rand plus transfers, or are you dealing with stuff more on the middle end, say between 2 and 3 million, or are you dealing with properties mostly below the 2 million mark? What have you found in your practice, Corli?
Look, I've got my clients range from, houses that they sell for 250,000, up
Sure.
to 6 million. So it just depends on your client and the area and all of that. So I've got a very wide spectrum of clients, and then obviously it varies. It varies the value or the purchase price. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I hear you. I suppose at the end of the day, you and your firm, you want to, make sure that you just give your clients the best possible service,
Yeah.
whether they buy 250,000 Rand flat or a 6 million Rand mansion. You're still going to give them the same service regardless, am I right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I say, helping clients is my passion. So whether it's irrespective of what the property or the purchase price is, there's an emotional aspect as well with conveyancing, and you need to be able to interact with your clients and put them first. So yeah, irrespective of the value or the purchase price, each and every client is important, and I make really go out of my way to make sure that they get the best service possible from the firm.
Okay, cool. I see we are running out of time, so I think we've got time for one more question from Sipho. He wants to know, do you see yourself being a conveyancer for the rest of your career, or would you delve into another property role away from conveyancing?
I think I'll probably stay in conveyancing until I can't practice anymore. That's my passion, and I don't know everything, but I do have a lot of knowledge that I've obviously gathered this last 14, 15 years. I also started my articles at a conveyancing firm. So, I mean, from the start on, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. So that is my passion. So if I can do it until I'm 80, then I'll do it.
I really hope that's the case, Corli, because you're excellent at your job. So thank you for all the service you've given us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
Awesome stuff. Cool. That concludes the Q&A with Corli. I think I just want to thank you, Corli, on behalf of KOURO and all of our viewers today for joining us and giving us some of your precious time. We really do appreciate it. I think that whoever is watching or listening to this has learned a lot from you. If they haven't learned something today, I'd be really, really surprised. Tell us if anyone wants to get in touch with you in terms of needing your conveyancing services. What is the best way for them to do that?
Look, I've got a website, so it's www.zandbergattorneys.co.za. So all my contact information is on the website, but they're welcome to send me an email as well. It's Corli, my name, Corli, at zandbergattorneys.co.za.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much for that, Corli. We really appreciate your time today, and it's been a pleasure having you on our show.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Rodney. Good seeing you again.
Corli.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Likewise.
You've provided a lot of insight to the viewers watching, and I hope they learned a thing or two from all of the questions we've addressed today.
I hope so.
Awesome stuff. We'll chat soon, Corli. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, that was a really insightful interview with Corli, Rodney. I certainly learned a lot. I didn't even know that the Law Society wasn't called the Law Society anymore. It's called the Legal Practice Council. So I definitely learned something.
Likewise.
I think when you have to know up to 390 different pieces of law, whatever the case was with Corli, I think there's always something to learn from someone like her. Hey?
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%.
100%. Cool, guys. We're heading towards the end of our live stream today, so we just want to get you guys know a little bit more about what's happening in terms of KOURO and how you guys can get involved. We do have a couple of projects that are coming up in terms of our house flips and multi-lets. There's still a small opportunity to get involved on Project Blanca. I think we have raised most of the capital required to do that project, but if you still do want to get involved, there might just be a small chance for you to still be a part of that. Rodney, what's happening on that project? What are we doing in Project Blanca?
Yeah, so Project Blanca is another one of our multi-lets, essentially, Matt. So what we'll do there is we'll do the renovation works and convert the property out into various units and multi-lets, which can then be tenanted out thereafter.
Excellent stuff. And Project Townsend, what are we going to be doing there?
So Project Townsend is a bit different. It's still a renovation project, but it's a property flip. So what we'll look to do there is going in, we'll renovate the property and then resale. Look for a sale on that, and then once the works are done, we'll close off and resell that property.
Awesome stuff, guys. Thanks for that, Rodney. So, yeah, if you're wanting to get involved, you can invest anywhere from 20,000 Rand upwards. You can earn returns of between 15 and 20% per annum. So please just go onto our website, kouro.co.za, for more information. If you're not quite ready to invest 20,000 Rand into a project, you can get involved for a much smaller amount and buy some equity shares in KOURO Property Group. We have options to purchase shares from as little as 20 Rand, so less than a cup of coffee. So you'll also find more information on that under the Investor Relations tab on the website. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I really hope that you learned a lot. I think it was a wonderful opportunity to hear Corli speak and harness some of her knowledge. So from myself, Matt Curry, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Rodney, would you like to have the final word to take us out?
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. From my side, thanks to everyone watching here, and hope you've learned a thing or two from Corli in all of her experiences and the information she shared. Also, just like to take the opportunity to encourage everyone to follow us on our various social networks and keep an eye out on the various projects which we're taking on board, and anything new to come on board. I do know there's a few more in the pipeline than the ones we've mentioned here, Matt, but those will eventually be shared with the public in due course.
Definitely, Rodney. Thank you, everyone. Over and out.